Having drawn attention to the Barclays Bank crisis, uh, it would be remiss of me not to make a short video to say that it seems to have been resolved and that the bank seems to be working now. But uh, this is a scandal not of fraud or financial misdeeds, though Barclays has had plenty of those, but of something more insidious: the inability of a bank to perform the most basic function of banking, to serve its customers and to be reliable. It's failed in both those respects. So, in the last 3 days, Barclays customers have faced a full scale breakdown of service. IT failures have left thousands unable to access their money, trapped in the Kafkaesque nightmare of a bank that simultaneously tells them not to worry and fails to pick up the phone when they do. A breakdown in banking services is bad enough. A breakdown in access to the bank itself, where complaints vanish into the ether or complaints simply cannot be lodged, is a catastrophe. It's an insult to the customers. For 3 days, the digital banking infrastructure, Barclays mobile app, the online banking and payment systems have collapsed. Card payments have vanished, balances failed to update, customers who dared to call were met with silence, as I was. Imagine a financial institution so thoroughly modernised that it has all but abolished in-person banking, yet cannot field an emergency response when the system fails. And that is what Barclays has demonstrated under its new CEO Venkat to his friends. I'm going to come to him in a minute. The consequences have been dire. Workers have been left unable to access wages on payday, home purchases collapsing as banks refused to confirm transactions. One particularly humiliating case saw a mother forced to abandon her grocery shopping at a checkout because, as far as Barclays was concerned, she had no money. I'm sure she wasn't alone. The bank, to its credit, has apologised in some sort of general airy-fairy way, but apologies in banking, much like overdraft fees, accrue interest over time. And Barclays has a long history of scandal, from the LIBOR rigging scandal in 2012 to the fraudulent fundraising with Qatari investors in 2008, from Jeff Staley's mysterious ties to Jeffrey Epstein to his personal attempts to unmask a whistleblower. And now in 2024, we have the new crisis, not of criminality, but of sheer incompetence. And so I think it's important to turn to the chief executive, C.S. Venkatakrishnan, or Venkat to his friends, a man who in a Financial Times column mused on his decision to work through cancer treatment last year as a show of dedication, dismissing critics who called it CEO swagger. Well, I think this is not so different to embellishing your CV or in a job interview, and you're asked, what do you think is your weakness? My weakness is my obsession with working hard and getting the job done. CEO swagger. Well, here is a weakness, and it's a big one. If executive strength is to be judged by the ability to persevere through illness, then executive failure is measured by an inability to run a functioning bank. Barclays' failure is not a mere glitch. It's the inevitable result of a corporate culture that prizes efficiency over accessibility, PR over problem solving, the importance of the bank elite over the ordinary customers. For too long, banks have treated customers as data points rather than as human beings, and digital services have replaced human interaction not because they are better, but because they are cheaper. The great irony is that when the system fails, there is no one left to answer for it. And so what if Venkat had to pay time and a half to his employees to man the telephones over the weekend? That's what they should have done. And the fact that they didn't is testimony to his inadequacy as a CEO. If Venkat wants to prove his resilience, he needs to fix the mess at Barclays. He needs to recognise that he was asleep on the job. He needs to try to restore trust, not with words but with actions. And until then, we're left with a simple truth: a bank that doesn't answer the phones and doesn't deliver the service that it promises, that isn't reliable, has no business answering to its customers. It has no business being in existence. It is a non-bank. It is not doing its job. And for 3 days, people have been in anxiety and unable to function financially. And I certainly realised how dependent I am on this second-rate institution. I've had complaints about banking fairly consistently over the last 2 or 3 years, and I've registered some of these here on YouTube. I've seen all the banks that I've had dealings with close in my own town. So the only banking that I can do is online. And then that fails as well, and there is nobody available to answer. There's no means to complain. There is means to complain, in fact, but it took some time to discover it. The means to complain is to write a letter. But whether that will actually be answered, whether that will actually be dealt with, is very difficult to say, because the letter, the address for the letter, is very vague. It's Barclays Customer Relations, Free Post. That's it. That's it, as if you're writing a letter to Santa. So I'm interested to know how that progresses. But for now, I think it's enough to say that Barclays is something you should probably avoid. And when I think of Barclays, I will think of Kenneth Williams, because that's how I sum up this bank's attitude to its public.